Can't think of the right term.
Well, that ain't it.
Welcome to the Charlotte Buzz, where we drink beer from local breweries while telling stories about the neighborhoods they're from. I'm Chrissy, and this is Drew.
And today we're drinking Silver Star Pilsner.
Hey, big money.
Yep, no IPA here.
Oh boy.
It is from Seaboard Brewing, not Temple Mojo.
Shabam. So what had happened was, in the greater Matthews area, when you go to Seaboard, you get all your growlers and crowlers from Temple Mojo, which, when I tell you about the brewery, I'll tell you a little bit more about all that. But they do have an IPA that would have been my preference to get, but they didn't have it over at Temple Mojo for us to put in these growlers. So Pilsner it is, and big step forward on this podcast.
Probably the lightest beer we've had.
Ooh, yeah. That is something
It almost
else.
looks like wine.
I mean, compared to the beers we normally have on here yet. All right, so tell us about this guy. Our very first Pilsner, kids.
It is a German Pilsner
I'm going to taste it while you tell us.
brewed using authentic German malt, hops, and yeast. Full flavor, perfect balance, and pairs well with everything.
Except an IPA's palate.
Not a fan?
It's not terrible. It's what I like. I mean, I guess, and that goes with the classic German, whatever. It tastes very classic beer taste to me.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm quite to that place where that's my preference just yet. What was the percentage on this?
4.7%. I didn't say that. My bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. It'll just drink real slow for me, where, yeah, it's just very classic, what I imagine beer tasted like as a kid or something. It's just like very classic beer
It says
flavor.
a Pilsner is a pale lager. So it's got that.
I could see that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Just in general, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like a...
Yeah, it's got a crisp, like, kind of makes me think what you were saying whatever week about going to the race. Like, you could drink a bunch of these on a cool, like on a hot summer day.
It's a solid beer pong beer.
Yeah. It feels very much like that, I'd agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, still not my flavor profile preference, but I think it's a good tasting beer. It just doesn't suit my taste wants.
Yes.
The quality is good.
Yeah.
I just don't prefer the flavor.
This was a...
And I prefer a little bit of a thicker beer because, like, the double IPAs are my favorite. So it feels a little thin to me, but just a preference.
This was a suggestion from the barkeep at Temple Mojo. Once we found out we couldn't get the IPA.
That is true.
So... Didn't he believe it was their best beer? Like, not... It was their best brewed beer. I think he was like, this is their best work.
Maybe.
Maybe not his favorite tasting, but he thought it was their best work.
And yeah, so we kind of told him, like, you know, I'm an IPA person, so we went for the pale ale that they had offered to try that, and that was really like, it almost tasted like a sour to me. Like it was very light, very thin, and very like
Tart.
I wanted to say ripe. Tart is definitely the much more appropriate term. Yeah, that just was like an instant, oh, that's not as palatably acceptable for me as some of the other pale ales had been. Mm-hmm. And so then we explained, and he was like, here, try this one. And definitely a better option. I'd still prefer the IPA, but
Yeah.
I think it's very well done. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like it's a beer pong drink. It's fine. It'll drink, but it's not.
But yeah, I mean, beer pong's a good way to describe it because it's definitely you're a little classier because it is still craft beer.
Yeah.
But it's also much lighter. You could go more distance with it, and yeah, summer beer, good on a hot day type of thing.
Might be a good beer to introduce people to the craft beer world.
That is very true. This could go back to the Monroe Southern Range. Blanked. This could go back to the Southern Range thing of, start to convert those Studweiser folk and all them. That would be a good alternative. So do you want me to tell you about the brewery itself?
Yeah.
Or do you got some more about the beer?
No, go ahead.
All right. So, Seaboard, as a brewery, opened in early 2018. So, a little over a year old in that sense. Mm-hmm. It officially opened as Seaboard Taproom and Wine Bar in August of 2016, which, granted, I know I've only lived down here since 2014, but for some reason I felt like it was there much longer than that. But this also does go to, we were very surprised when we learned that Southern Range opened as like a craft beer bar before it opened as a brewery, and this was actually a very similar trajectory, but somehow it seemed very strange for Southern Range. I don't know why. I don't know. Nonetheless, opened in August 2016, had a very large selection of international beer, and they've got over 1,000 bottles of wine on their wall on their wine side that you can take home. And it was very much split between a wine connoisseur type of atmosphere, and then the other side was a very large array of international beers, which is not actually all that common here in the greater Charlotte area because we try really hard to be local. So it was a nice little twist on everything. And basically what happened was in the Matthews area, we had the Carolina Beer Temple, which was, it's basically sort of like a bottle shop, but then they've got a handful of drafts and you just kind of sit down. It's real cozy and just have a couple beers type of place. And that owner decided they wanted to open up this location. And something I didn't know was the brewery was in the works since day one. Like the way it was not presented to me, but the way I assumed it sort of happened was they had this tap room and wine bar, and over time decided, you know what, we've got the space, we want to join this craft brew scene. But it was actually very, like, I read an article before Seaboard opened in August of 2016, and that article said phase 2 will be to open the brewery, and they actually anticipated that opening in 2017, and for whatever reason that didn't happen right away. But so that was cool. I didn't know that. So the owner of Carolina Beer Temple opened the brewery, and then just a few months later, Temple Mojo became this sort of third location in this in this beer brewery triangle in the Matthews area. And so it's kind of the bottle shop with draft coziness. Then you've got the more like, quote, sophisticated wine bar and international beer tap room with now a brewery in it. And then this third place, which is much more hang out, get all the crowlers and growlers and that kind of stuff area. So it's a nice little triangle they got going on there. And when the brewery opened in 2018, they started with 3 beers, which we actually were very fortunate to go and film a video there. It was our very first Queen City Quest, which I just actually rewatched last night, and it's very clearly our first video. I mean, you could see where we tried, but we needed some time to grow. So something else I thought was very interesting is that where Seaboard is, there's that kind of line of parking for the town right next to the train tracks. And there's that big staircase that goes behind the brewery. Yeah. That actually was put there because the brewers, like the owner of all this, said, hey, we need to put a stairwell in here. So he talked with the town, and that was specifically put in because of Seaboard. And I didn't know that either. Just things I've taken for granted. And then last thing, if
Bringers
you didn't...
of the staircase.
Yeah. They had some good pull there, I guess. But the last thing was that the tap room, brewery, the whole nine was named after the Seaboard train.
Airline.
Yeah, I was gonna say station.
It's like
line.
yeah.
It was the Seaboard Airline Railway, and it ran from the 1800s to the 1960s. There's an old train car just outside of the town hall, and it was just the train line that came through the area, and so they wanted to, kind of preserve some of that history and take the town into the next phase of growth. But that's what I've got on it.
Cool. Yeah, if you want to see it, go check out that first video.
Or don't, Look, it was our very first video. We're trying. We're working on it.
Yeah.
Everybody needs some time to grow, guys. You can even tell from like podcast 1 to podcast 17. We need some time to grow. I think we're getting better.
Maybe.
Well, depends on who you ask, I guess. J-Tap, we need your opinion here. You're our only loyal listener.
That we know of.
Well, other people need to tell us they listen, and then we can call them out too.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna look at.
Sorry if she offended you, other loyal listener.
Other loyal listener, tell me who you are, and I will shout you out. Nonetheless, we're looking at downtown Matthews. Mm-hmm. Take it away.
Yeah, so the title of my story today is called Do Better, Matthews.
Ooh, calling them out.
Yeah, this is basically more of a rant than a story.
Okay.
If you don't push the table all over the place.
Shh.
But we'll start off, we'll do the old Southern compliment. Was it called a compliment sandwich?
Yes.
Or
I've learned it as a compliment sandwich. You taught me a different phrase for it, which was talking about the innards rather than the bread.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But this is a family podcast, maybe.
Okay. So we'll call it a bread sandwich and call it compliment.
Yes. It's a good looking place.
It's
you
cute.
go through the town, you can just feel the history.
That's true. That is true.
A lot of old historic buildings. 10 of the buildings through Matthews are actually on the National Registry of Historic Places. Mm-hmm. So if they were put on the registry, you'd think there's got to be a story there. Like there has to hold. Sure. This building has a meaning.
Absolutely. They don't just throw something on there because it exists. Mm-hmm. There's some sort of significance behind it.
But Matthews may be a secret society because you can't find out anything about these.
That's pretty true.
Like maybe you have to go
to the museum.
Yeah, you have
I think it's either they're playing it really close to chess, so you have to go to the museum for it, or they're so far in the historical realm that they really don't get the concept of accurately portraying information in a in a visually representative way online.
Yeah. So
one of the two.
While I was looking for my story, I pretty much just found the same stories that you can talk about for any town in North Carolina. There were 2 big families in the early days, the Renfros and the Funderburks. Mm-hmm. And they got their money from cotton.
What?
Used the money that they got from cotton to build other things in the town to make it a town.
Post office?
Yes. So, I mean, that story you can talk about anywhere. We talked about it in...
Which one?
Up north, the...
Cornelius?
Yeah.
Yep.
I believe we did then, right? You did?
Cotton, yeah.
Yeah.
The weighers and whatnot.
So, anywhere in North Carolina, they pretty much have this story.
Yeah. Because we talked about the weighers up there. We talked about the mills.
Yeah.
In Noda and South End. And...
Another thing that's pretty typical, especially in this area, but probably anywhere, is the train rolled through.
What?
So I found out that the first train came into town on December 15th, 1874, and then Matthew saw a boom.
And then Matthew saw boom.
Typical stuff. I mean, that's about all I got. I mean, there's nothing too special that I could find.
There's a whole lot of cotton, a couple of people with money, and a train helped build it.
Post office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A train helped build it, and the post office made it legit. End of story.
Yeah. And I don't, like we just said, I don't know if it's them being able to tell the story or they're keeping it close so you'll pay the $4 to go look at the museum.
That $4 will make or break it, man.
But
I think we have some some earned biases to some of the stuff in Matthews, which have made us wonder if they are playing it close to chess, because I think with some of our interactions, I could see that honestly being the case, which is kind of unfortunate.
We can get into that in a minute because I'm going to get to it.
All right.
But while I was looking for stories, I found something that I feel like they even had to make up a story. So I'm going to read this little paragraph verbatim. Okay. Only info I could find on this at all.
All right.
Google doesn't have anything. It's just one little paragraph on the Matthews page, Chamber of Commerce page. It says, while the crime rate has historically been low, Matthews did experience the Great Bank Robbery in 1976. So first off, when you hear that, somebody stole some money from a bank, and it was like a big deal.
Right. Okay,
well, listen to this. Due to a tip, it seems that all the police knew more about the robbery than the robbers. What? While the would-be robbers cruised back and forth on the empty trade street, not noticing that it was blocked off with the feds on the rooftops, the president of the bank, Mr. Edward Funderburk, and a good-sized audience watched the proceedings from the plate glass window of the Renfro store across the street. When the bandits finally got enough courage to enter the bank, they were met by the law with loaded guns.
So quite frankly, they didn't do a dang thing.
No, there was no robbery.
What is that movie? There's a movie where it's some like futuristic thing, and they've got these people hooked up in these machines, and they have a dream, and they drop this little ball, and it... No, I swear to God.
This is not a real thing.
It is a real thing. I don't know that they have a dream, but it's like these weird, like, they like harvest these like psychic people or something in the community, and they like don't dream it, but they like remember it or see it.
They're in that like pool.
Maybe. And there's like this little ball, and it's the like the vision of it. And so that is them showing off where the crime will take place. And so the people can...
Minority Report.
Maybe. It showed them what the crime was going to be. And so they could get there in time to stop it before it ever happened. And then it was this like weird, for lack of a better term, like Inception-y thing where they fake committed a crime so that when the real crime happened, they could say, oh, that was just them replaying one that's already happened. And so they could actually go commit the crime because they thought the preview of the crime had already been stopped. And then it became this whole big issue of, well, they never actually committed the crime. And so, like, yes, they had the intent to commit, like, everybody who was arrested for going to commit a crime, they had the intent, but they never actually got a chance to see it through. And in that moment, maybe they wouldn't have. So where is the actual justice? And that's what I'm thinking with this story is, like, where if they didn't actually commit the crime, like, you've now arrested people or whatever.
They may have walked in with guns. That probably in itself is a crime.
At that time was, I mean,
with a gun, probably.
Is that like an actual like federal mandate?
It was 70-something.
I mean, but still,
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I almost got the cops caught on me in my hometown for walking into the bank with a motorcycle helmet on. Luckily, I went to church with the lady.
You went to church.
And she knew it was me. But she was like, don't do that again. I was like,
yes, ma'am.
Didn't even think about it, but yes.
That's crazy. I mean, like, I
so
guess
that was the great robbery of Norwood, was me walking in with...
I mean, there you go. You can write that up on a Wikipedia page and no one will ever know. You'd be like, yeah, see previous cases of the great robbery of Matthews.
Yeah.
For context.
But that's the kind of stuff I was finding. Like, nothing to really make a story out of.
Mm-hmm. And then, like, historical buildings and things that should have a story to whatever degree. Really find it.
Like, we're gonna have to go down to the basement of something and blow the cobwebs off, and take our flashlights and our...
Right, because, I mean, they call it, don't they, historic downtown Matthews?
Yeah.
Like, for something that is so truly historically driven, they play it so close to chest. And I think they want so desperately to encourage and, like, bring out this history, but they have not found the proper ways to present it, or you know, they have a museum and all that stuff, and that's great, but they have not come to terms with the times to say, like, yes, it's great, we should have this museum regardless, but also if we really want people to buy in and invest in this history and what this town is, we need to go to them with it, and they're not willing to go to them and develop basically the internet to have their stuff on there, right?
So because there are two websites that you think would be wonderful
resources. Yeah,
resources of information on stories for us. There is the Matthews Historical Foundation and the Matthews Heritage Museum.
Yeah, I mean, sounds good to me.
Yeah, when you Google history of Matthews, those two pop up, and you're like,
sold, handled, like so much better than Wikipedia. Yeah. Let's go.
So you click on Matthews Historical Foundation, and there's an About button and a History button.
All right. Two standards. Yep. Let's do it.
Okay. Click on History. It's a history about the Matthews Historical Foundation. Like, that should be in the About page. And you should give me history on Matthews because you're the Matthews Historical Foundation. Concur. Like, when I see history there, that's what I assumed it was going to be.
Right.
But it's not. So, I don't know. I mean, Matthews Heritage Museum actually does a little bit better. They have, like, a quarterly newsletter.
Okay.
So you could probably, you know, if you keep up with that, you could probably get some stories.
But that requires a lot of pre-planning.
Yes.
In theory.
Yeah. But yeah, I learned zero about Matthews pretty much from those two. The best source would be the actual Matthews government website. You know,
I agree.
They gave,
based on my research,
they gave the best info. Still, it's little tidbits. I mean, and that's
you get a little nugget, and then you need to really dive in.
Yeah.
Elsewhere.
That's all you would expect from them when they have a historical foundation.
Correct.
But I don't know. That's not all that the Matthews Historical Foundation does, though. They also keep the town from getting breweries.
I mean, laying it all out. All right, let's go.
I told you it was going to be a rant.
We've got some beef. All right, keep going.
So I think it was Matthews Brewing Company. It wasn't like Matthews Brewery, right? It was Matthews Brewing Company.
Believe so.
Tried to be a thing.
Yeah, they tried to be a thing.
But that didn't happen.
I got shut down hard.
Yeah, we went to the...
We sat in on like a town hall meeting. In attempted support.
And Matthews Historical Foundation had two issues. They were going to move to the old post office, and they were actually going to try to, like, you know, not recreate, but like have... They're like a history wall type of thing. They're going to tie into the history of the building and Matthews in general. Right,
like they were going to highlight the building itself and then have old historical photos and different little odds and ends as the decoration decor stuff.
So if that would have happened, they may have been our best bet to find stories.
I mean, for real, though.
But the Matthews Historical Foundation said that there wasn't enough parking. And that...
Have they been to any brewery in the greater Charlotte area ever?
And that they didn't want it to be too loud because it's next to their reed house.
And they specifically stated they did not want a lot of blaring of like AC/DC well into the night.
And
to which we continued with, have you ever been to a brewery? Because that is not the vibe whatsoever. And they all close at like 10. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if
there's a lot of things there.
Yeah, I don't know if they just want to keep it how it is.
And it's one of those like weird double-edged sword type of thing, because it's like, yes, you're a historical quarter of the town.
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, you don't want to change anything. That makes sense. But also, what currently resides there is nothing historically grounded whatsoever and is not doing any attempt to preserve the historical whatever. It's just a matter of they're cool with it because it's what they know. And
yeah, it was like a martial arts academy. Mm-hmm. The building is empty now, right?
I don't know.
There's a big sign for lease. I think the building's empty now. So you get a whole bunch of nothing.
Yeah. Which is like, it's that weird thing of like, they don't want to change that little section of town because it's a historical section, but also by not changing it and by not allowing something to come in, you're not allowing people to come in and you're not allowing more interest to be drawn in the historical quarter, and therefore it will eventually like die out because it's not getting more people brought into it.
Yeah.
It's a bad cycle.
But yeah, that project was killed and they opened Farm Mill.
PHARR.
Yeah.
If you remember me specifically pointing that name out to Drew the other week.
Yeah, it's in Harrisburg.
Yes.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to call it Concord because I know it's up sort of near the track where it's like it's not, but it's kind of.
It's one road over.
In my understanding of the greater Charlotte area, which is not as nuanced as your understanding. Yeah. I believe Concord.
We will be checking them out as one of the last few episodes.
Yep. We got 3 to go, so it's coming.
Stay tuned for that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we already talked about it too. I think the one thing that Matthews does do a good job with is the tenants that are there. I think Temple Mojo, they're all owned by the same guy, but Brakeman's pretty cool. Jekyll and Hyde, cool little spot. There's a nice little crate place.
They just got that new like Irish pub.
Yeah.
Grace O'Malley's?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a fun little place to go to.
It's a cute little town. Yeah. You can feel the history when you're walking through it. And I mean, there's Renfro Hardware is still there. There's the farmer's market, like all these things that make it feel very sort of old worldy. There's a lot of the community aspect is still very much alive, that all of the businesses do work together for different local festivals in that area, and they come together for all kinds of like backyard.
It's the home of like 10 nonprofits.
Yes. And so they all do work very well together. So it does help build that community feel. But it's just hard sometimes of, yes, you want to preserve that. And yes, you want to preserve the community, the history, the camaraderie, the everything that goes with it. But there's also a line of looking toward the future that makes it more feasible to preserve that past. And right now awareness. They're trying so hard to like hold on to the past that they're not allowed, like my concern is they're going to hold on to it so tightly they're going to end up strangling it, basically. It's like
keeping it in the family.
Yeah. And by doing that, you slowly die out of who gets access to it.
But it's a cool place. If you haven't been, you should check it out. Yeah. Just if you want to learn more, good luck.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to
Probably have to actually go to the museum.
Yeah.
Which is
$4.
I was going to say, I guess thankfully there's only one brewery in Matthews, so we won't have to venture there until they come back around in rotation.
Yeah.
But
so rant over.
For now.
Just do better, Matthews.
Fair enough.
There's potential there.
Yes.
And it's just not working.
Underutilized.
Yeah.
The potential's definitely there, and we do like the history and all the things. So before it's too late, take some steps to the future, Matthews. Preserve your history by being available to the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With that, I'm going to, of course, do a nice little rundown of some real quick snapshot history before I dive into my story. And it's one that I'm sure you will have a lot to say about. I hope so anyway, because you certainly...
The snapshots are your history part.
My story part, because I'm just giving some kind of real basic raw facts, and I expect you to have a lot more interesting insight onto some of the things I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
So be prepared, sir.
Okay. I'm ready.
Are you? All right. So, shabang. Love those double page notes. So, Matthews, in the early 19th century, was unofficially called Stumptown because of all of the cotton farming that came into the area, left over a lot of stumps that they were scooching around.
I feel like they would have needed to get rid of the stumps too, though.
I concur. And again, couldn't find a lot of information on it. Read basically 2 different blurbs that just said there was a lot of cotton farming that came into the area, and they, it ended up being called Stumptown based on all the stumps that were left around. Nothing very clear in any of those descriptions. So that's where we get Stumptown Park and that kind of stuff. In 1825, a man named John Miles Fullwood was the postmaster.
Post office.
He ran it, as well as, can't think of the right term, not a hitching post, but there was a lot of like wagons and things that came in and out. And so he was kind of the central location, but he ran all of that out of his house. And so because of that, everything that was mailed to the Stumptown ended up being mailed to Fullwood Station. And then so for a while it was called Fullwood instead of Stumptown. And then of course the railroad came through. Like you said, 1874 was the first train that came through. And there was a director in the railroad company named something or other Matthews. I did not write his full name down. And so from then on it was Matthews Station and became Matthews when the town incorporated in 1879, and as of 1880, it had 191 residents, and as of 2010, it had 27,000 plus residents.
Nice.
Grown a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what his full name is, because if you search his full name, nothing comes up.
Awesome.
Just so you know.
Cool.
I tried that.
Not surprised.
I was like, this would be a good deep dive into a person, but
Again, shocker.
Crazy.
But yeah, even when we did Cornelius, like I said, the man named Cornelius that the town is named after doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. Yes, Matthews is exceptionally terrible at keeping their history for such a historic town. But it's not uncommon, unfortunately. So
yeah, I mean, I guess I can kind of see that a little bit, especially with the Cornelius guy too. It's like at the time they thought they were very important individuals, and then like didn't age well. Yeah, like they weren't important later. Yeah, like there were other people.
It didn't stick around long enough for it to be recorded the way it should have been, and by the time the record started, it was already too late. Which is how I feel about Matthews in general. Bum, bum, bum.
Wow.
Don't let it be too late, guys.
You don't want throwing shade now.
Well, you started it. You turned the lights off. Or turned them on. I don't know how shade works. Anyway.
Let me grab this.
Beer thief. You can top me off a little bit if you don't mind.
I'll think about it.
All right. So, the last little tidbit I wanted to give about just Matthews in general before I dive into my story. I thought this was interesting, and I thought you would not appreciate this on a personal level, but you would just appreciate the interestingness of this. In 2014, Matthews was named the 5th city in the specific category of city. It was called a bee city.
I saw that.
As in an insect, a buzzing bee, a bumblebee. This was in 2014. It was the 5th one designated a bee city. And there are currently 84 bee cities in the U.S. And basically they talk about how... Yeah. They talk about how 80% of flowering plants and 1/3 of our food needs pollination. And so they're trying to help preserve these insects because I guess they're being harmed in a whole lot of ways, and so they're afraid of it all going away.
When did this happen?
I'm not sure when bee cities became a thing, but Matthews was the 5th one in 2014. But the best thing to me, for whatever reason...
Bee movie came out in 2007. I bet you the first Bee City was in 2007.
Haven't seen it, but I could see that. All I know about the Bee movie is all the weird things I read online about it being like a bee falling in love with a human person and the strangeness of it. But their like tagline that's in their logo for the Bee Cities is making the world safer for pollinators, one city at a time. That's not a joke.
Huh? What?
I thought it was really funny, and I think they maybe need a little bit of branding help.
That's kind of like the Matthews Heritage Foundation. I can't even remember the name of it now.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Their little tagline motto was, "Children experience, adults remember."
You're not wrong, but also, what? Yeah, that's how I feel about this. And it's one of those, like, to me, it sounds silly, a whole bee city thing, but also, like, I get, it's the kind of butterfly effect thing, like, something so small can affect a lot of things, so yes, let's make sure we get there before it's too late. Cool. But also, it's just a little ridiculous.
At least they're trying to bring awareness.
Yeah.
Unlike...
I was going to say that too, is like, yes, I want to joke about it, but I get let's make sure we preserve this before it's too late. And I'm like, unlike some other people. God, it's terrible because I really do like Matthews. Matthews is like mostly where I live, actually. Mm-hmm. So I feel like throwing a whole lot of shade, but it's one of those like you critique most the people closest to you. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's part of it with me for Matthews is that's like my hometown here in Charlotte, so I'm extra critiquey of it, but also is like genuinely they need to step their game up. So anyway, so I'm gonna talk much more just current type of history, and I wanted to talk about the Matthews Sportsplex.
Okay.
So,
and you think I'll know more because I know sports?
You'll see where I'm going.
Okay.
So the Sportsplex first, I guess, opened in 2013. It had 5 fields, a playground, and a shelter. Not quite sure what they mean by shelter, but again, probably limited information.
Picnic area or something.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know if that means like a shaded picnic area. I don't know if that means like we've got a big like storage shed with some stuff. Like, I don't know. No idea. They held tournaments on weekends and practices throughout the week. And then in June 2015, they started phase 2 with a plan to add 6 more fields, a championship field with what they reported as 2,700 seats, walking trails, additional shelters, and some other things. And in 2017, phase 2 was officially complete with a grand opening on June 17th.
Nice.
As of this point, the facility has 9 synthetic turf fields, 2 grass fields, a 2,500 seat stadium with a grass field, a field house with locker rooms. It also has a 90-person conference room that they rent out. And all the fields are multi-purpose with all the lines and stuff, so you can do all the sports. They have 2 playgrounds and about 2 miles of walking trails.
They got baseball fields? Because, I mean, you need the space, but you also got to have a fence.
No.
Okay.
Like, in the long fields in the sense of, like, soccer, lacrosse, field hockey.
Yeah. It's just a turf field, so just...
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could play ball in it, but it's not going to be a diamond for you the way you need it to be.
You could shag some ground balls if need be. Yeah.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, like I said, when they first announced that they were planning to start phase 2, they said 2,700 seats in the stadium. When they completed it, they said they've got 2,500 seats in the stadium.
Where did they go?
That's both on the, like, Matthews government site with the Sportsplex subpage. And then if you go to the Sportsplex page itself, it says they have 4,117 seats. So I have no idea. Because, you know, they're really on top of...
But if you go, there will be seats. That's right.
Yeah, that is, yeah. So I don't really know what to make of all that. Okay. But, like I said, the Sportsplex opened on June 17th of 2017. And its inaugural opening event was a Charlotte Independence game versus the Harrisburg City Islanders. And they are part of the United Soccer League. And it was a sold-out crowd to a questionable number of seats.
Yeah. 25, 27, 4,100.
Yes. And the Charlotte Independence won 2-0. So my reach into the Matthews area is now I'm going to talk about Charlotte Independence.
Okay.
Which is why I expect you to have a little more insight than I would have.
They play in Matthews all the time, right?
Right.
Okay.
So
that works. That's not really a reach.
Well, so the Charlotte Independence, part of the USL, United Soccer League, they were an expansion team in 2014, which, quite frankly, I don't really know what that means.
It just means they added a team
to
an existing league.
Oh, okay.
It's a new team. Instead of a team moving, it's a brand new.
Okay.
So they added, so it went from 12 to 13 that year or whatever.
Okay. So their first season in 2014, they played at UNC Charlotte, Winthrop, and a temporary facility at Ramblewood Soccer Complex. And then they came to the Matthews Sportsplex in 2017 when it opened. However, they wanted to play at the American Legion Memorial Stadium, almost said station, back in the trains. But the construction ended up being tabled due to the MLS bid that was going on for a while and all of that.
Okay.
However, last fall, they signed a 10-year lease that they will be playing at the American Legion Memorial Stadium after the revitalization comes in spring of 2021. Again, very unclearly worded, so I'm not sure if spring of 2021 is when they are moving to play there or if that's when they'll start revamping. But nonetheless...
I think they're revamping now because that's why like Grady Cole Center is right there.
Yeah.
And the Charlotte Roller Derby can't be there. So I'm assuming they're doing
that's
it now.
all part... Yeah.
So it's probably all the same thing.
Which, very well could be. And that's what... It was just unclearly worded. But they did sign a 10-year... contract to play there, so they will be moving there.
Makes more sense.
And at this point, we've got a minimum of 2 more years that they will be at Matthews Sportsplex. So that's kind of also why it feels like a reach. They didn't start there. There's already planned to move out of there, but for right now, they're in Matthews. So,
well, my goodness, they started all over the East Coast.
I mean, yeah. Yep.
UNC Charlotte and Winthrop, those aren't close. I mean, that's University and Rock Hill. I mean, that's opposite sides.
And I don't know where Ramblewood
I don't know
Complex is, but yeah. So I just kind of like the idea that this isn't major league, right? I don't know what the levels of soccer are.
It's.
I left a lot of my information under research because I knew you would already know this, and so I figured I'm gonna just let you kind of. I'm gonna let you fill my story.
It's like a minor league, but I don't think they're directly affiliated with the team.
Okay.
So it's not
the same as like hockey or baseball or anything, but
it's a professional league.
It's a lower
level. It's not MLS. Yeah.
Okay. So the Charlotte Independents, they were named in honor of the MECDEC and the general revolutionary history of Charlotte. They their like mascot is the Jacks, or I don't know if that's like officially the mascot, but it's like they call themselves the Jacks, and they have like a Jacks Junior League and all that kind of stuff to honor Captain James Jack, who's the one who took the mech deck and the Resolves up to Philadelphia and that whole shtick.
You can get his beer at OMB and see him in the Trail of History.
You sure can.
Just all the times that we've come back to this guy.
But so yeah, that's the idea behind the naming of it, and just kind of the atmosphere of it is they're doing everything they can to honor just the history of revolution and newness and bravery of the area. And I respect that. And I think it's also fitting that they're honoring newness and preserving history in starting new things. And they're in Matthews for a season. Maybe they'll learn a thing or two. That's kind of what I've got. It's, again, not real deep or anything. I don't know if you want to add anything specific about the Charlotte Independents or the soccer leagues in general.
I don't know that much other than we need to go watch.
We absolutely do need to go watch.
We've talked about it for years.
We should definitely do it while they're at the Sportsplex too, like before they move, so we get a chance to see them in both. I think that would be cool.
Feel the vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
maybe go count how many seats are in that complex.
I've never even been to the Sportsplex. I can see it.
I have
74 part of it.
Yeah, I've gone running there a couple of times, but I live very near it, so.
Yeah, never been.
But I also don't like to be around.
I'm not even really sure how to get to it, unless I parked on 74 and walk through the woods.
It's right behind my church. Like literally, you could walk out of the back part of my parking lot.
Yeah, but how do you drive there? You can go around the back.
Lot. Okay. Right next to the bowling alley. There's my church and the bowling alley, and there's that little side road right in between it. Bam, right into it.
Okay.
There's also, if you go into downtown Matthews, and you kind of where that parking lot is by the train tracks, there's like a side road that goes behind the post office and all that. That's where it used to be before they opened that little side road by my church, where you go back that way and you swoop your way in.
And I've seen the signs from like Monroe, where you take a right.
I have no idea.
You know where there's always that truck parked that's like backed into that one spot on John Street? So you come off the interstate and you're heading towards Matthews.
Oh, Monroe Road.
Yeah, Monroe Road.
Yeah. I'm thinking Monroe, like town.
No.
Yes, now I know exactly what you're talking about.
Always backed in.
Right before you get to the post office, kind of.
Yes.
Yes, that is.
That's the one you're talking about?
It's not what I'm talking about, but it gets you to the same point.
Okay.
But yes. Monroe Road. I understand. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've got. Matthews has a really cool history, in theory.
Maybe.
It's got a really good vibe of history. It's got a very good community feel, small town feel. It does have a lot of future potential and future things coming in. We've got, our first professional soccer team in the area is currently residing there. We've got its first brewery. We've got a lot of really interesting things happening there. It's just a matter of the, kind of town leadership being both committed to preserving the history, but also being open to new ways of preserving history, or being more open to new ideas about how to preserve history. And it's a lot of potential. It just needs to be better tapped into, I guess.
And the Great Bank Robbery was not a thing. It didn't happen. That's not a robbery.
Well, I'm now going to call it the Great Bank Robbery of Norwood. So, That's the thing. Hashtag TGBRO Norwood.
Oh my God.
Hashtag. Make it a thing.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Make Drew famous. Well, on that note, Matthews, do better. And thank you for your great beer scene, because it is good.
Yeah.
We're a fan. And go check it out. Thanks for listening. 3 episodes left. hope to get some input. Whoever our other loyal listener is, please make yourself known so I can shout you out. Like, comment, subscribe, follow, all the good things. And make sure you get involved before we take our break in between seasons so that when we get started up for season 2, you'll be ready to go.
Yeah, and you're going to want to hang around for season 2. We got some plans.
Oh, there are plans. But for next time.
Check you later.
Bye.